Kyle stood frozen for half a second that felt like eternity, every instinct in his body screaming at once. The terrifying image of his baby crouched on the edge of a 30-story balcony, tiny arms gripping the fur of a fully grown German shepherd whose hind legs were already dangling over the side, his claws slipping on concrete, his breath heavy and rapid. The kind of moment that doesn't give time for logic or planning, only raw, panicked reaction. He screamed Noah's name, loud and cracking, as he sprinted across the room, nearly slipping on a spilled sippy cup on the hardwood floor. His heart pounding so loudly he couldn't hear anything else, and in those seconds between the scream and reaching the balcony, his mind played a cruel highlight reel, images of Max as a puppy with Kyle's dad. Of Max sitting at the foot of the hospital bed after the funeral, of Noah's first giggle when Max had licked his toes, Jessica dancing with Noah in the living room as Max stood by like a patient guardian, of all the moments that had quietly built this family's soul, now poised to vanish with a single slip, a single second too late. But when Kyle reached the glass door, shoved it open with shaking hands, and rushed onto the balcony, he saw something that stunned him still. Noah had wrapped both arms around Max's neck. Not out of fear or panic, but with the calm, instinctive trust of a child who thought this was normal, like hugging a toy or pulling up on a sofa. And Max, despite his trembling legs and the sheer weight of his body hanging over 30 floors of open air, was not barking, not whining, just breathing deeply and holding on, his eyes locked into Kyle's with a kind of pleading hope that said, "Please, I'm still trying." Kyle dropped to his knees beside them, one arm wrapping securely around Noah's waist, the other grabbing Max's collar, then shifting to grip under his front leg, his own body now halfway across the balcony tiles as he tried to pull the 90-pound shepherd upward without causing the dog to panic and fall. "Hold on, Max," he whispered over and over, his voice cracking, his muscles straining, one leg bracing against the balcony frame for leverage, knowing that a wrong move might send all three of them over. Max, somehow understanding the urgency, stayed completely still, allowing Kyle to slowly, inch by inch, lift his front paws onto the balcony lip, scraping his belly along the concrete edge, his fur matted with sweat and dirt, while Noah let go and sat quietly nearby, wide-eyed and watching as if he knew his part was over, and now it was Daddy's turn. The final heave took everything Kyle had. He groaned through clenched teeth, arms shaking, and finally Max's back legs landed on the tile with a thud. The dog collapsed into Kyle's lap, tongue out, chest heaving, tail thumping, weakly once against the ground before going still, his entire body shivering from the adrenaline dump, but alive, safe there. Kyle pulled both of them into his arms, the dog and the baby, hugging them so tightly that Noah squirmed and giggled without knowing why. And Max let out a low, tired sound like a sigh of thanks. The city around them buzzed on, unaware. But in that small space on the 30th floor, something holy had happened, a rescue. Yes, but also a revelation that love has no language, that loyalty doesn't care about logic, and that sometimes it takes a baby to remind the world what courage looks like. They sat there on the tile for minutes, just breathing, Kyle rocking slightly, whispering, "It's okay. It's okay," like a broken mantra. Until the pounding on the door pulled him back to reality. A neighbor, who had seen the shape from below and called building security, now frantically ringing the bell and shouting for help. Kyle stood, carrying Noah in one arm and coaxing Max to his feet with the other. Walking back into the apartment, shaken but intact, tears streaking his cheeks, the baby cooing softly, and the shepherd limping gently behind, his tail now wagging, just enough to say, "I'm still here." By the time Jessica returned from her appointment, the living room was quiet. Max curled up with his head on Kyle's lap, Noah asleep against Kyle's chest, and the balcony door latched, locked, and taped shut with half a roll of duct tape. She dropped her keys and ran to them, her face cycling through confusion, fear, and relief, as Kyle whispered everything that happened, every second of it, as tears slid down her cheeks and her hands shook while brushing Noah's curls and kissing Max's forehead, her voice cracking as she said, "Thank you, thank you." Not knowing if she was saying it to Kyle or Max or God or all of them at once. That night, they all slept in the same room, Max on a blanket beside the crib, Kyle on the floor, Jessica in the rocking chair, none of them wanting to be apart. The bond between them forged deeper now, not in words or photos, but in something wordless, eternal and unseen. In the days that followed, something changed in Max. He was slower now, not injured, but quieter, more still, like a dog who had seen the edge and come back from it, carrying a new kind of wisdom in his eyes. He no longer barked at doorbells or chased squirrels on TV. Instead, he watched Noah even more closely, never letting the baby out of his sight. And when Kyle carried Noah toward the balcony one afternoon to show him the clouds, Max winced and stepped in front, placing his body between them and the door, until Kyle knelt down and whispered, "I know, buddy. We're not going back out there." And Max licked his hand in silent approval. Something else shifted too. Noah began to talk sooner than expected. And his first word, to no one's surprise, wasn't Mama or Dada, but Max, spoken clearly. Confidently one morning, when the dog walked into the room and the baby's eyes lit up with recognition, from then on they were inseparable, not just in space, but in soul. The bond between them, a thread of silent loyalty that no one could explain, but everyone could feel. When Jessica shared the story with her sister over the phone, it was meant to be private, but her sister was so moved she told a friend, who posted about it in a parenting forum, and soon enough, a local news outlet reached out, asking to speak with Kyle and Jessica about the baby who saved the dog. And reluctantly they agreed, not for attention, but because maybe, just maybe, someone else needed to be reminded of what dogs mean to children, what children can do when we least expect it, and how love, when shared freely between souls who trust each other, can truly perform miracles. The story was picked up by national morning shows radio hosts, and online blogs headlines like "Toddler Saves Dog Dangling" from balcony and German Shepherd pulled from edge by baby's touch went viral. And people around the country sent letters, care packages, and even custom toys shaped like Max for Noah. One woman from Minnesota, who had lost her own dog the month before, wrote a letter that said, "Watching your story reminded me that my dog is still with me in spirit. Thank you for sharing your miracle." And another from Texas wrote, "I didn't believe in anything for years, but your baby and that dog made me cry for the first time in a decade. Maybe some things are still pure." The comments online were flooded with love, stories of people's own dogs who had saved lives, babies who had uncanny bonds with pets, and thousands of variations of "Where can I send them something?" or "I hugged my dog tighter today." Because of this, one man even shared, "I watched this with my 7-year-old daughter, and now she wants to name our new puppy Max." If you've made it this far into the story, I want to know you're with us. Drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it over there? I want to see how many people across the country and maybe the world have been touched by what a baby and a dog taught us from a 30th floor rooftop in Chicago. And if you've ever had a dog save you in some small or big way, even just by being there when you cried or sitting with you when no one else did, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Because Max's story isn't just one family's story, it's all of ours, stitched together by pause, giggles, and second chances. What comes next might just be even more surprising and beautiful. Stick around for part 3.